Hello and welcome back to the Night Sky Knitting channel. My name is Rachel, I am your host, and I am a knitter based out of Ottawa, Canada on a new office chair that keeps wanting to roll backwards, and this channel is my chatty outlet to talk all things knitting with occasional guest appearances by other crafts. Today is Saturday, March 25th, and it's been, I think, about a month since I've last sat down and filmed anything. I know I'm overdue for my overview of my second year of knitting garments. However, it's kind of a big undertaking and I haven't really had the time or been in the right headspace for that, especially since I want to give good reflections and insight on each of those projects. A bunch of them are in storage because a lot of them were summer garments. And yeah, I've been feeling a little subdued today, so I kind of just wanted to film a podcast, talk about knitting, check in with you guys, especially while I have the house to myself. So yeah, one theme that you will get from these is winter knitting. I know a lot of my fellow YouTubers or podcasters have been talking a lot about spring knitting and inspiration, and I have been eating those videos up. I love them so much. I love any type of like inspiration or mood board or seasonal or life period knitting plan videos. However, it is still the dead of winter. Okay, it is still definitely winter here. It is the end of winter. It's not the dead of winter, but it's full on snowing right now. Here's a video I took right before sitting down to film to prove it to you. And all of my projects kind of reflect that I'm still very much in winter. And yeah, okay, I only have one finished object to show you guys. I'm wearing it, and it is my Luz cardigan by Emily Louise of Atelier Amélie, who is a French designer who also translates her patterns into English, maybe a couple other languages, I haven't checked. This is fully size inclusive. There is a pullover version of this, which would appeal to me, except it's very similar to my very beloved petite knit fortune sweater silhouette, just minus the little clovers, and if I didn't already have that, I would get the Luz pullover. However, because if you really liked my video Ode to the Fortune Sweater, recorded about this time last year, and you wanted to knit the fortune sweater, you feel medium about the clovers, and that it's not a size inclusive pattern, I recommend the Luz. If it's written like this one, I think it'll be very, very good because this is a very well written pattern. The shaping is good, the fit is good, I like it a lot. So if you watched my last couple videos, you're probably very familiar with the specs of this, but it's meant to be a DK weight sweater. I knit this on a sport weight and I went down a needle size and up a garment size. I also extended the button band by a stitch to make it more rib and less I-cord, because this pattern was originally knit in 2 strands of mohair held together, and I went with 1 strand of a woolen spun sport weight Canadian wool, which is a Romney BFL Polypay blend by Small Bird Workshop, which is a Canadian hand dyer that I'm a very big fan of and will continue to patronize moving forward. It was a limited run coming from the fleece of a sheep named Garcia, and I got these Japanese shell buttons from Unit in Toronto, and these are, I think, yeah, one sec. Oh, my measurements will be linked at the bottom of the description box below. I knit the 3rd size of this to get functionally the 2nd size, because I was off gauge, and I'm very happy with the fit. Okay, my memory did not fail me, and I was right. They're Nonohana buttons. These are the other ones. I got 2 sets, one of this gray and then one of this grayish green, and I ultimately went with the gray for a more neutral effect, especially since the shine of these buttons stands out against the gray and adds a little bit of extra oomph. However, I still have the green ones. Yeah, they're natural shell buttons made in Japan by Nonohana. I got them during Unit's Boxing Day sales, and I think they're beautiful. And I really like the look of them, except, these buttons are 11.5 millimeters in diameter, and this pattern recommends 10 to 12 millimeter buttons, and I got 11.5 millimeter buttons, so on the larger end of that range. And they're still too small a little bit for this cardigan. Like, they don't really want to stay. Yeah, exactly. So at some point, if I decide I really want to start wearing this closed more, I will have to sew the buttonhole shut. Sorry, I want to keep my mouth in the frame, but I also want to show you what this looks like. Hold on. I'm a big fan. I've been wearing it a lot. I ran out of yarn. I actually used a different yarn, a Jamieson & Smith's 2-ply jumper weight Shetland wool, left over from a pair of mittens I made my mom, in a similar weight and a similar but not the same color to finish the last few stitches of the tubular bind off. I can't tell which side it is, which is a good thing. Oh, it's this one. Maybe you can see just a teensy bit of an off color, more yellowish yarn down here. Every last inch of this yarn that I had went into this. I've knit it with bracelet length sleeves, as is my typical preference, and at first I was a little bit sad that this is going to be cropped, but I actually love it a lot, and I think it makes it very, very wearable. I really like where it ends. I find that I can wear it with dresses and skirts as well as my pants. Because it's a cardigan, it's not really problematic that it's cropped, and I think that this garment is perfect. I would maybe lengthen the sleeves an inch each and the body an inch. Actually, I don't know if I would. I mean, yeah, no, I'm really happy with this. I've been wearing it a lot. I've been wearing it to the office, I've been wearing it to class, I've been wearing it to study in a cafe because it's almost final season, I have papers to write. And I'm really happy that I ripped out the yoke, actually most of the body, and reknit the whole thing completely to go up a size, because by not compromising after I made that mistake, I have ended up with the garment that I dreamed of, and I'm thrilled with it. And I highly recommend this pattern. It is, for me, a strong endorsement to look seriously at making something else by this designer, Emily Louise, or Louise? Still don't know how to pronounce it, and I'm thrilled. I'm feeling like I'm in a bit of a cardigan phase. And on that note, I'm going to show you another cardigan whip that's new, that you have not yet seen. Oh, completely unrelated, but I want to make sure I say this. I deleted Instagram off my phone, which means I can't post anything unless I struggle through posting on my iPad, which just kind of feels like a little weird and sad to try and do. I do check it a few times a week, either on my iPad or via desktop. So if you send me a message, I'm not ignoring you. If you tag me in a story, I'm not ignoring you. I can't share it onto my story, and sometimes I just miss them because it's a 24-hour thing. I'm just trying to spend less time on social media and looking at screens, which has negative consequences for my interaction with the knitting community, but has been overall positive for my attention span, my time management during finals, and I think my self-image. I think it's better for me. I think I feel better when I look at these things less. However, no plans of giving up YouTube anytime soon. I just like talking about knitting way too much. So my first work in progress is the Cassia Cropped Cardigan by Refined Knitwear, which is not a size-inclusive pattern. And it looks like this. I'm knitting it in 1-strand Malabrigo Ultimate Sock in the color Rosalinda, and then 1-strand Emily Seagilly's mohair lace in the color Sandstone. And the two of these separately look like this, which doesn't look like it will look nice together. And I'm glad that I paired them together and went out on a limb for it, because held together they look like this, which tones down the kind of bluey notes in this and tones down the sandstone color of this. And I'm overall very happy with the fabric that this is producing. Returning viewers will know I struggled for a long time to find a V-neck DK weight vertical button band raglan fitted sweater to use these yarns for. I appealed to you guys a couple times for help finding patterns, and you guys really did come in clutch. There were a couple that I was like this close to using, including another one by Emily Louise, of having designed this cardigan fame. Also, the Jacqueline Sislak cottage cardigan was a contender, but it was too big. And the ombre cardigan by Tanis Lavely was also a very strong contender. I came super close to buying that one. Where all of those patterns had something with them that I would have to modify to get the image I had in my brain that I didn't have a lot of confidence in my ability to modify. For example, the Cottage Cardi by Jacqueline Sislak had a lot more positive ease than I wanted. I wanted a 0 to 2 inches of ease around the bust cardigan. The Cottage Cardigan, being a cottage cardi, otherwise perfect silhouette, is meant to be worn with a lot of ease and to be a very like easy breezy throw on layer. And even knitting the smallest size would have me with a lot more ease than I wanted. And I couldn't like go down a yarn because I was looking for something in a DK that I could wear with the two of these. I thought about knitting it at a much tighter gauge and the smallest size, but then I was going to run out of yarn and also, I think run out of yarn, and also I don't want a mohair cardigan at a very tight gauge. That seems like way too hot. That was another reason why I didn't go for the ombre by Tanis Lavely. First of all, I think the V was a little bit higher than I wanted. I want this to be like a girls' night or date night cardigan. I want the V to be like right down there. I have a very precise image in my brain, and I wish I was able to design things so I could just make it up, but no. The ombre, it would be very easy to change the button band to get what I wanted, I think. I have a lot of hubris when it comes to modifying things, but also not enough to tackle doing this with a cardigan. A lot of project pages were fitted with the amount of ease that I wanted, and it didn't look right based on what I wanted, and I wasn't sure if that was a fiber content issue or a style issue. And I wasn't sure if I just didn't want to risk knitting this whole thing and then having to frog it if it didn't look right. And also it was at a much tighter gauge than I wanted for a mohair cardigan because I find mohair to be quite warm. And as many other North American podcasters have talked about recently, it's not the most practical fiber for our climate because indoors you have to have heating and outdoors you're wearing a coat. So often I don't overheat when I wear mohair things because my mohair things are knit at loose gauge or lace, but I didn't want to start overheating in this. And then the Rendezvous by Emily Louise, the V met like up here, and I wanted it down here, and I wasn't sure, I really felt iffy about modifying the rate of increases along the V in the shaping to get what I wanted. Anyway, I bought this. It's an okay pattern. I don't want to spend a ton of time just justifying why I chose a non-inclusive pattern. Yeah. But yeah, that was my thought process there. I don't feel great about it. But I have made my choices and I do think I should own them. This is an okay pattern. The translation is a little dicey. For example, it's called the Cassia cropped cardigan. There is also a Cassia just cardigan, but the difference is not at all in the crop. It's like the cropped one is the V-neck one, and then the other one is just a round neck crew neck like this. And I did modify this to remove puff sleeves. You're supposed to have like a really noticeable like just puff like right at the sleeve cap, not a balloon sleeve, if that helps make the distinction between what I'm trying to say. And I just didn't do the increases or the decreases to shape that. This pattern is kind of confusingly written. I can't tell how much of it is my brain just kind of being overloaded with other things going on at work and school, or if it's translation, like things I'm just not used to. And like there are 3 sections where information will be given for this, and most of it is repeats, but then there'll be like one important thing that's not repeated in each one of those sections, and then I'm like constantly scrolling through paragraphs of text at the very beginning when she talks about a technique, and then back to the area when I'm doing it, and then there's like a summary blurb before each section, and then looking for the one piece of information there, and then scrolling back to the actual part of the stitch count. I don't know. Yeah, it might be me, but I would maybe proceed with caution and go into this not as your first garment or your first cardigan. Like, I recommend having a little bit of experience under your belt, just because it's kind of confusingly worded in my opinion, but again, that might just be me. But beyond that, knitting this has been fine. The main thing that I would like to talk about is I have been on a bit of a journey to improve my purling, because often when I purl, I end up with some pain in predominantly my right elbow, which is like, I knit left-handed, so it would be the needle that I'm using to like tension my yarn, because I knit continental. And I would like to no longer have pain and threaten an injury, so I've been experimenting with other purl styles. And the button band is like, and the ribbing is Norwegian purl on the purl sides, and the rest of it is modified Portuguese purl, because I didn't want to change what I was doing halfway. This is knit combination style, which has been really, really cool for me to learn. I don't know if I have the ability to try and explain to you combination knitting if you are unfamiliar with it, but basically you can only do it when knitting flat, is my understanding. But it has drastically reduced the fatigue or ache I feel in my hands and my arms when I am knitting back and forth and purling. And I have been knitting combination when knitting flat stockinette for everything since I've learned it for this project. Basically, you, when purling, purl in a different way, which is a much more, for me, minimal movement, and mounts the stitches on your needle opposite. So normally for me, the left leg is the one in front when it's mounted correctly, but mounted so that I don't twist my stitches. Because I'm a left-handed knitter, for you guys, for most of you, that'll be the right leg of a stitch. Whereas when you purl, you mount the stitch, like the way that you're wrapping the yarn on your needle, has the other leg in front. So then when you go and you knit, you're knitting through sort of the back loop, but it's not difficult because the stitch isn't twisted when you do that. It's still open. I know that sounds like absolute nonsense, but I watched a bunch of tutorials and it has been game-changing. I feel like it's much faster for me than the Norwegian purl, and my tension is so much more even. I find modified Portuguese purling, my purl stitches are so much tighter than my knits. Norwegian purling, they are so much looser than my knits. And when I'm knitting in the round, that's kind of minimally a problem because the purl stitches are usually part of a texture and they're in the same row, so it just kind of forces it to the back or to the front, and that's not really an issue. It is when I'm knitting flat. And also, it causes me pain. Whereas this, like, do you see tension issues? I know it's a little bit blurred with the loose gauge mohair fingering, but that's pretty okay. And I find it really enjoyable. It just kind of makes a lot of sense. So every single person who either DM'd me on Instagram before I deleted it or wrote a comment saying that I should try combination knitting, you are absolutely correct. Thank you so much for the recommendation. It's changed things for me and I really appreciate it. I've only done this with things that are knit flat. I understand that knitting combination style has things I need to be, if I was to try and do like, I don't know, a lace or a cable pattern or maybe more shaping, it would maybe have additional steps to make sure that I don't end up twisting things or doing things wrong. However, I haven't knit anything more complicated than this in combination style, and I've been very happy with the results. So that is the big win from this, combination style knitting. My goal was to try and have this, well, loose goal. I was hoping, wow, it's really coming down. It's like big clumps of snow. I'm supposed to go out tonight. Yeah, I wanted to have this done by the end of March. That wasn't going to happen because, spoiler alert, I cast on a whole new sweater, and that one is almost done. So this has been good. I just kind of wanted something that was stockinette in the round, and stockinette in the round without holding two thinner yarns together, because I was just craving an in the round raglan, plain stockinette. And that is a lot easier to knit when I am doing my readings or in meetings, unintentional rhyme, or taking notes. And because for this, I have to make sure that I don't accidentally only catch one of the two yarns. And knitting combination style I can't do without, well, I can do a little bit without looking, but not the same way. And so I cast on something else, and this has not gotten a lot of attention since, but it is soon to be one of my focuses once more because, you know what, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll tell the story of things that makes sense. So my next work in progress is the Step by Step sweater by Florence Miller of the Handmade by Florence YouTube channel here on YouTube. So far it looks like this. I'm really happy with it. Like I said, I wanted to knit something, oh, I'm going backwards, in the round. Stockinette, knit stitch, while I'm like taking notes, I can knit, drop it, take my little note, knit, drop it, whatever. And I really enjoyed knitting my Lakes Pullover by Ozetta, which was a worsted weight saddle shoulder construction sweater, and I love wearing it. I wear it a lot. I had to like resist wearing it too much in February and the beginning of March when it was bloody cold and very snowy. It was perfect. And I think until I knit the lakes, I was a little bit afraid of positive ease. I often am kind of overwhelmed in boxy or loose or oversized sweaters because I'm short, store-bought ones, because I'm short, and they come just a little bit too far, cut me off at a weird spot, or they're kind of bulky and it looks like the garment is wearing me as opposed to me wearing the garment. And so when I started making my own sweaters, I tended to go for things that had no more than 5 inches of positive ease, also because sometimes I'm impatient and I want my things faster, and if you knit them smaller, you're done faster. But the Lakes has bang on 10 inches of positive ease, and I love it. I love wearing it. I don't care. Well, I made it so that it fits me the way that I like, and I avoid the issues with store-bought sweaters that assume the person wearing it has different proportions than me. But also, it's just really nice to have woolly armor on days like today. So I also really love that it's worsted weight. I have a couple worsted weight sweaters, but they're more fitted. One's actually kind of my summer sweater, my green ranunculus. And I wanted something else that I can wear over like a loose tee and take off if I get too hot, but be really cozy and snuggly in, and wear as kind of my top layer also as when we finally do get to head into spring. Like, you know, when it's around 10 degrees and sunny and you can wear a t-shirt or a shirt that you like underneath, but then a thick woolly sweater on top and like take your bag and go about your day. I'd like that. And I wanted another sweater with a lot of ease, and I really enjoyed knitting stockinette in the round on a worsted weight wool and gauge because I can feel exactly what I'm doing. Like, because the needles are so thick, this is a 5mm, which is a US 8. Yeah, and, you know, pretty thick yarn. I don't have to look what I'm doing. I can feel each stitch very clearly. And I was just kind of craving this. It was cold and I wanted some wool. This is pretty much my main acquisition for this episode, but I bought this over a month ago. Emily C. Gillies is arguably my favorite hand dyer. It's definitely the hand-dyed or indie-dyed brand that I have the most yarn of, full stop. I think a second place would be Cat's Riverside Studio, A+ colorways. You can find them at most yarn stores in Canada, I think, at least the ones that I go to. And Emily released a new base called Maritime Aran, which is 100% untreated Canadian wool from the Maritimes region of Canada, which is the bit above Maine, basically, to my American viewers, and because Emily moved there. And then hand-dyed. And this base was released. The sheep were raised in the Maritimes. It was spun in the Maritimes. It was dyed in the Maritimes and mailed to me from the Maritimes, which means overall minimal ecological impact, negative ecological impact, minimal emissions from transportation, which is a huge thing in wool that I think we don't talk about enough. Minimally treated, very natural, and honestly quite soft to me. I don't think I would wear this as a hat. Actually, it's not really bothering me. It's not soft, but it's not scratchy. And Emily dyed it in some of her classic colors. This one is Nimbus, and honestly, every color in this range tempted me. Emily Post kind of teased this because they did a pop-up at a local store in, I want to say, Nova Scotia. I think it's called Fia Yarns, or just Fia Yarns. And that was the, I think, launch of this, and it was at this pop-up before it was online, and I was lying in wait because I just finished knitting my lakes. I realized that I like that kind of worsted weight, thick, warm, minimally processed wool sweater. And then Emily came out with that in gorgeous modern colors that speak to my soul. And I was waiting, stalking their page, and released it. I had to send a photo of the stock to my friends, and they all ranked the colors because the number one reaction was oh yeah, these are all Rachel colors. And all of them said Nimbus first. And I agree. I've also been going through a bit of a blue phase. My new desk chair is blue, so that's fun. And this, I'm obsessed with it. One of my friends met me at a coffee shop yesterday on our lunch break, and we were there to talk about something else, and this was on my lap, and she's also a knitter, and she walked in and she was like, oh my god, that yarn. And we talked about that for a while before the actual thing we were there to discuss. So beautiful. Look at this variation, the ever so slightly dark and light bits. It really, Nimbus is the perfect name for this. It really feels like a hazy sky, and I'm obsessed. I have already kind of promised myself that for my birthday I will buy another sweater's quantity of this in another color. Unfortunately, Nimbus is one of the two colors that's sold out, but Emily and I DM'd to ask, are you gonna make more? Please? And Emily said yes. They'll probably be dyeing more in the summer. So, hot tip for you guys. It's amazing. The only thing I will say about this yarn, it's 219 meters or 240 or 45 yards per 100 grams. It's a 2-ply. This is what it looks like in a in a cake. And I left one skein intact for you guys so that you can see the pretty skeining job, Hank job, and Emily's pretty label. Yeah, okay, I'm so glad. I'm always so proud of myself when I remember the specs of the yarn without having to look it up. 240 meters, 240 yards, 219 meters, and 100 grams, maritime Aran base, 100% Canadian wool. In Nimbus. And I got 4 of these because I did the math at the time, and I was like, oh, that would get me another Lakes easy. And Lakes is my biggest sweater, so would work out perfectly. And also, I couldn't really afford to buy more than 4 of these. And I was like, that'll get me a sweater. And then I started knitting this, and I had just, I did lose yarn chicken with this. And I was like, and then this had sold out, and just much like this had, and I was thinking, oh no, oh no, oh no, I'm about to run out of yarn for another beautiful Canadian limited run type of yarn for a sweater I'm really, really excited about. So, sorry guys, I'm really scattered today. I think I say that every episode though. So, I'm now mostly done the yoke of the Cassia crop cardigan. I have this. I am really excited about it, and I am wanting to cast on something with this immediately because I've noticed this thing where, sorry for shaking the table. I've noticed this thing where I get a new yarn, a sweater's quantity of it, and I'm really, really excited, but I feel bad for the sweater quantities of yarn that I already have in stash, and then this goes in line behind the things that already exist, and then by the time I get around to the yarn, I finish my existing projects and start new projects, my excitement over the original thing I was really happy about has kind of dimmed, and it's almost like a pressure a source of pressure as I'm sitting there thinking, okay, you need to finish stuff because you keep buying more sweaters quantity and then sweater quantities of yarn and then not using them. So, and then I just keep thinking, okay, I need to use this. I need to use this, as opposed to I'm so excited to use this. So I started a project with this very soon after receiving it. And I knew that I wanted a top down in the round raglan. I knew that I wanted a turtleneck because I had just finished my self-drafted Dickie, the rainbow one, in this yarn. And I wanted a turtleneck sweater, much like that turtleneck Dickie. It showed me that I did really like a turtleneck. And I wanted a 2-stitch raglan and something of a deeper yoke. And so I was looking around and I wanted it to be a worsted or Aran weight. So I was looking around, I was thinking something along the lines of the Louvre sweater by Petite Knit. I love the look of that. I think it's gorgeous, but it is a DK. And I wanted something maybe with a slightly higher, slightly smaller armhole depth, yoke depth. So I was thinking maybe I can just kind of mess around and attempt using some existing patterns I have to like fudge the math and see if I can modify it. And then I saw Florence's step-by-step sweater, which is a top-down worsted / Aran weight raglan with a 2-stitch raglan. So perfect. Thank you to Florence for designing that. Also, I had knit a gauge swatch before deciding on a pattern because I wanted to have an idea of what gauge I liked with this and what fabric, because I was thinking of doing the math and kind of modifying one. And I got, at first I did 4.5 millimeter needles. I don't know why. Maybe because this is woolen spun and I wanted a little bit more structure and stability. And I got 16 stitches and 4 inches. I did a big swatch too. It was like a 6.5 by 5 inch or 6 inch, like rectangular swatch, not like a 4 by 4, because I really wanted to get a sense of the fabric. And Florence's step-by-step sweater is a 16 stitch gauge. I think I found it again by putting that gauge into Ravelry and looking. Also, one of her samples is knit in a very similar color with stripes, so I was like, perfect. Very easy to just make a turtleneck. And yeah, so I still did modify it a little bit for fun. Basically, I wanted to think a little bit more. I also knit this whole yoke twice because once again, by kind of fucking around, I found out. But I also I was okay with that because much like with this, I would rather just redo it and get something I'm really happy with. And also knitting's my favorite hobby. I'm not sad if I have to do things more than once, usually, if it's something that's not time sensitive. And also originally I knit the turtleneck on something like a 3.5 millimeter needle. I don't really know what I was thinking. I think I made that decision spontaneously and kind of late at night, night sky knitting, the dark side, to get really neat ribbing, and instead it looked really janky. It was not neat, it was way too tight, and when I put the project down, and I'd mostly just done the turtleneck, it stood straight up. It was stiff as a board. And that meant it also ate up a ton of yarn. So I got up to like here on the yoke, and I was convinced I was gonna run out of yarn. And so I thought about it and I thought about it and I thought, okay, yeah, so I ripped back the whole thing. I think I cast on, I'm knitting the 3rd size for like 9 inches of positive ease. And I redid the ribbing. I did 2 fewer stitches, and then I went up to a 4.5 millimeter needle for the rib, which has given it a much looser, stretchier, happier fabric, and also just neater ribbing. Like, it was so much worse than this before. Also, unfortunately, the purl side is nicer than the knit side, but I think I want it to be folded in like this instead, but I do suspect that's going to block out. I also, again, just because sometimes I like to modify things for fun, I added, this is a free pattern, by the way, and Florence has an entire video that's, I think it's like 2 hours long, showing you how to do every single thing in this in depth because it's meant for beginners. And I have a bunch of friends who are interested in learning how to knit. One friend I've recently taught how to knit and has just finished up a hat. And it's also kind of nice to test these things because a lot of them are interested in knitting sweaters. So I really appreciate Florence making this as a free resource because knitting can be kind of a expensive hobby always, but especially when you're just starting out and it feels like a lot you have to invest in terms of like you have to buy all these needles, all these different sizes, the yarn, all these like little things. And so it's really nice to have a free pattern for beginners to show my friends where they're really bitten by the knitting bug, to get a sense of what patterns look like, and as kind of a gateway into Florence's writing style, I'm quite impressed. And it makes me a lot more likely to knit her patterns moving forward, seeing how clear and well written they are. I'm now more seriously considering knitting her Robinson wrap top, which I think is very, very pretty. But yeah, shout out to Florence. I think that's a very savvy marketing technique to have beginners be introduced to you first and foremost as a reliable, helpful, modern designer, and feel comfortable knitting your patterns after having your first garment be made with one of her patterns. And I think it's a very, very generous thing to do for beginners who might be intimidated by knitting and who might be intimidated by the startup costs of knitting. Like for me, I'm now used to most of my disposable income going to this hobby, but I think there's a fair amount of sticker shock from my friends, and they're like, wait, you spent how much on yarn? And I keep saying you don't have to. It doesn't have to be an expensive hobby. But like for me, a lot of the time it kind of becomes one, at least for my budget as a student. Big tangent, but Florence, I think, savvy, generous, very smart, and it's a well-written pattern. But point of this is I can tell you stitch counts because it's free and you can download it, and she talks about it in a video. You're supposed to start for my size with 2 stitches for each shoulder, and then you increase on either side pretty much immediately because it is a raglan. And I was looking at it and a lot of the photos online, and I like a raglan stitch to start closer to like where this one is, like around here, more my collarbones, whereas this one started up here, and it creates a very pretty, elegant line and really isolates that shoulder. But I just kind of wanted one that went more like yabam as opposed to like yabam. Which again doesn't matter because of the ease in this, but that's what I wanted. So I took 2 stitches from the front and 2 stitches from the back to add to each sleeve. So I think this was then 4 and 4 and then immediate increases, and then from there. I also wanted slightly bigger sleeves compared to the body than the schematics of the sweater as written would have given me. Again, based on my legs. And so that was something else that starting over kind of allowed me to do. Why not? And so as I approached, why did I show you the back? I don't know why I moved it like that. As I kind of approached the end of the yoke increases, the raglan increases, I knew this to begin with, but I was going to reach the final stitch count for the sleeves faster than I was for the body. So I switched to increasing on the sleeves at a reduced rate, which kind of, I don't even know if you can tell. It's a bit of a slightly different change in the raglan rate here, which gives an ever so slightly different shape to end up with a stitch count that is appropriate and in line with what Florence wrote when I do sleeve and body separation. I hope that makes sense. What else did I do? I didn't increase fully. I finished increasing, I think, like 3 rounds before I should have for the body, because I was happy with how the yoke depth was. I was happy with the width of it. I was worried I was going to run out of yarn, so I was happy with like maybe not having a full 10 inches of positive ease, but having closer to 8 or 9 for this sweater, and I just stopped increasing. So I think, I'll double check my notes to make sure I have the correct thing when I show you the finished object next video. However, I'm pretty sure that instead of like 180 stitches for the body, I ended up with 172, something like that. Like a couple increase rounds less or fewer. I don't know the grammar. And then I've been knitting the body. And So the body up until here is 2 full skeins of this. So 200 grams or 438 meters. And I was convinced I was going to run out, so I unraveled my big swatch. Oh, another thing. When I reknit this, I went up a needle size. So at the beginning, I knit this whole thing on a 4.5 millimeter needle because it got me 16 stitches, and I thought a thick fabric would be good for the longevity of the garment. But then it was kind of stiff. So I went up to a 5, I swatched, and, I went up to a 5, I swatched, a small swatch, just to get a sense of it, blocked it, washed it, did the whole shebang, and this is like 15 2/3 of a stitch in 4 inches. It's like ever so slightly looser than the original one, but I like it. And it's actually, the crucial difference is it doesn't tire out my wrists, because knitting it before on the original gauge of 16 stitches per 4 inches and 4.5 needles, it was quite fatiguing. And then this, like, it's basically the same fabric. I don't have to really worry about how that changes the garment, but it's just I can knit for longer. And then that's also another reason why I was okay with like 2 increase rounds short of the size I was going for. So then I started on the sleeves, and this sleeve, which is not bracelet length, it's like a full length proper sleeve for me, was 45 grams of yarn. Like, I didn't even have to, I've yet to break into the last one. Made it a pretty decent way through the second sleeve, and I still have like, this is still the skein from the first sleeve. So original Rachel's math was correct. 4 of these is enough to get me a big sweater, which really is so good to know. However, because I was panicking, I went to the sleeves. And yeah, modifications on the sleeves. I did some sleeve cap shaping for fun because I like short rows. And I find that a fun way to break up the monotony of stockinette in the round. I like shaping. I like practicing shaping. And I like the short row shaping on the sleeve caps from the Lakes Pullover. I did not do combination knitting on the pearls for here. I've been doing Norwegian pearls. Also, my short rows are messy. Like, look at those resolved German short rows. I know that will either block out or really not be that noticeable, but like, look at that. Yeah. So I'll have to stretch that around and hope that it goes away. But yeah, overall this has been a lot of fun. I have really enjoyed it, and that's why it's gone. Also, 16 stitches is a big gauge, goes by really quickly. Also because I thought I was running out of yarn, I did 2 decrease rounds on the body, where I decreased by 4 stitches, both rounds, and like I said before, roughly a 16 stitch gauge, removing 4 stitches twice, so 8 stitches, removes about 2 inches. And I did some math, I think, and I was like, okay, that'll get me like 2 more rounds of yarn for this sweater, which can be crucial when you're playing yarn chicken. And also I figured like by my waist, a tiny bit of shaping wouldn't really matter. And now that I know I have more than enough yarn, I'm wondering if I frog back to that second decrease, because it's only like a few rounds up. Can you see that? Yeah, it's like here. I could frog that and then use up more of the yarn, but I might not. I don't know. We'll see. And yeah, this I did in a day, and not including the sleeve cap shaping. And I love it. I keep stopping to admire the yarn. I think it's gorgeous. I think it's gonna look really nice. I think it'll be done by the end of this month, and therefore it will be perfect for when spring comes. When spring comes in April. Yeah, it's stopped snowing, but I was on a call with some colleagues in London, England earlier this week, and I don't work Fridays because I have class, and one of these colleagues sent an email saying, "Hi Rachel, happy Friday," and then like the substance of the email. So on Monday when I saw it and I responded, I was like, "Hi so-and-so, happy spring," because it was the spring equinox, and all of us have been here in Canada been like, happy spring, it's coming, they promised. And then they were all like teasing me on the call saying like, "It's been spring here for weeks, Rachel, there are daffodils up," and I was like, ha 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 ha. I think this will be a really good transitional piece, and then also a really warm piece in the winter, and then also like a layer I can wear if I, like, I don't know, live my ideal life and go camping sometime this summer. Yeah, that is a really long tangent about a pretty basic sweater, but I like it. I recommend it. If you haven't knit a sweater yet, you should maybe check this one out. And even if you have knit a sweater before, it's been a lot of fun. It's a great base. So far, the pattern's been pretty A+, so shout out to Florence. Okay, brief acorn sock check-in. I always say, oh, I've done a little bit of progress on this, but it's not worth showing yet. And I just kind of want to prove that I have. This project still exists. This has been supplanted by other things consistently as my transit knitting, because I've reached a point where I need the instructions, so it's not really good for the bus. And it's been slow going because when I'm home, I'd rather be working on one of my garments. But I have been really enjoying this pattern so far, and I've been really enjoying using my brain for this toe up, heel flap, and gusset construction. And the last time I showed you this sock, I was like here. Like I was about here. And now I'm here, and you can see that there's some shaping for this heel. Like, can you see that? Please tell me you can see that little bulge for the heel. So, it's coming. And I'm having fun, and I still really love this yarn. And I also was looking at the instructions, and it hit me, I've just started the gusset, basically. But it hit me that I'm actually almost done this sock. Like, it's not a tall sock. There's a lot of texture coming up on the leg of the sock, but then I'm done, and I just start the second one, so that's going to be fun. And also, with the clocks changing, I have more light, and it's a little bit easier to see, because besides that, I was knitting this in the bright lights of, like, public transit or using the knitting lamp from my mom. Speaking of using the knitting lamp, 3 weeks ago, I started this on the train home from Toronto, and then do you guys appreciate how I'm pronouncing it like a non-local so that everyone knows what I'm talking about? Anyone who's from Toronto calls it Toronto. I cast this on the train back, but it was really hard to see because I was on the night train on Via Rail, and I've worked on it for maybe an hour since. It's so hard to show you. There we go. But when I work on it at home, I use my knitting lamp, which is on my bed. So this is using some of these smaller skeins of unraveled cashmere sweater yarn from that sweater that my dad gave me, specifically to unravel, because I want a knitted headband for my ears. I started knitting one, the Frida, with the leftovers from the Dickie, and then I ran out of the mohair this far because it's double knit, so it's 2 layers, and it means it eats yarn. But this was a lot of fun and very fast, and I recommend the Frida pattern. But then I need to unravel this, and I haven't gotten around to it, but I still wanted an ear warmer for the imaginary life I have as someone who goes snowshoeing and skating more, but the canal didn't freeze and I didn't go snowshoeing this year. I've only ever gone once in my life. And I started this, but I think that this is too big. Like, look at, so you can see my ear. Like, I think this is gonna be just, it's too much. And it's really hard to see my stitches, so I haven't been working on this very much. And actually, now that I'm looking at it, I think I'm gonna frog it and remove, like, that much. Would that be enough? Yeah, I think that's better. So yeah, because I really want to use this, and I want to find something I can use the smaller balls for that won't require me to stop and join yarn a whole bunch. And I think cashmere is the exact kind of thing I want on my forehead and my ears. And if I ever become someone who engages in a lot of winter sports, then that kind of headband will be perfect. Next and final whip. I made an octopus because one of my coworkers is about to go on mat leave. This is the Summer of Secrets, C as in like the sea, octopus pattern by Rachel something for Yarnigans. It will be linked down below. Apologies to the designer for not remembering her last name. Anyway, it is an octopus. Everything is done except it's still wet, and I need to embroider on eyes, stuff it, and then like sew this bit onto the bottom so that the stuffing stays in. I mean, you could make it flat, but I liked it stuffed and leave in the ends. That'll be a project for, I think, tomorrow, because this is made out of mystery cotton that I thrifted. I think it's, someone in my comments identified it, and they think it's an old version of the Lion brand, I want to say 24/7 mercerized cotton. It's what, because often with stuffies or plushies or amigurumi or whatever, you can't really, or I have found all the ones I've made, I haven't been able to block because you're stuffing as you go. Whereas this is thrift store yarn. It was in a plastic bag at the thrift store, like a sealed one, but this is going to a baby who's presumably gonna stick this in their mouth at some point. I wanted it to be clean, and also because it's gonna probably be washed at some point, I wanted it to be cotton and easily, and like a mercerized cotton, so it's more easily washed. But then if it's washed at some point, it's gonna block naturally, so I wanted to pre-grow the fabric, and I have time. And then I'm going to use some Patons Croix yarn in black to embroider on little cute eyes, stuff it, weave in the ends, and we're good to go. I really, really like this pattern. I highly recommend it. It'll be linked. It's, I think, a very good beginner stuffed toy pattern. This is the only thing you have to sew. It's really, really clear. I knit this during presentations in class with my professor's permission, most of it. Like I finished the legs and started connecting them. And it's very clear, it's well written, I think, suits scraps very well. You can choose to do it in different colors if you want, and I think it makes a good, relatively fast gift and intro stuffy. And I chose an octopus because it looked fun. It looked like I didn't have to sew anything. I don't hate sewing. I just do a bad job of it, and then everything I sew that's meant to be like a little toy ends up looking kind of weird. And also, octopi are a thematically appropriate gift for my coworker based on what we do at work. So, this little guy. I will hopefully be giving this to my coworker next week because I'm pretty sure this is her last week in the office. This upcoming week. But I will do my best to take a photo for posterity and also to show you guys. Okay, and that brings us to acquisitions. I have not bought yarn in a month and a half because, announcement, I'm going to be going to Knit City Montreal this May, and I'm really excited about it. And I've already bought my ticket. One of my friends is coming with me. An in-person friend, not a podcaster friend, and I expect to buy yarn when I'm there. They have a big marketplace. I looked at the list of vendors. They're very appealing to me, and so I'm not buying any yarn except for using the gift card that I have for my mom until Knit City, or unless I have to buy some for like a gift or something, because I would like to save money so that I can buy things at Knit City. And also because I have enough yarn right now. And my focus is on using things from stash and sometimes giving them as gifts so that I have room in my stash and will not feel pressure or guilt by buying new things at Knit City. So I'm really excited about that. Feel free to say hello to me if you are also attending Knit City Montreal. I'd love to say hi. If it's a little awkward, it is me, it's not you. And also, I would like to warn you all now, I am not a hugger. It's not that I don't like you. I am uncomfortable being touched. It is an ongoing thing. I hated hugs. I hated any sort of physical affection from anybody other than my parents for most of my childhood, to the point where I was obligated to give my brother a hug on Christmas and his birthday every year as his 2 hugs per year, because my brother is very physically affectionate and it hurt his feelings that I never hugged him. So I promise it's not you, it's me. I am friendly. I would love to say hi to you guys. Just be warned in advance, not a hugger. So yeah, I'm very excited. I also have a lot of friends in Montreal, so I'm going to get to see a lot of people, both knitting and non-knitting friends, and look at beautiful things and learn about sheep, and it's going to be a grand old time. But ever since finding out that Knit City Montreal had tickets out, I've stopped buying yarn. So my main acquisitions are actually the Emily C. Gillies Maritime Aran. Where's the big skein of it? Oh, it's on the ground. This that you already saw and I waxed on and on about for a while in Whips. And then the other yarn I bought also like a month and a half ago, I just didn't show you in the last podcast because I had it here, is this Akara Yarns Silk Linen DK in the color Copper, which is a discontinued one, so it was on sale at a new yarn store in Toronto called Good Grief Yarn and Provisions. And I'm on a sort of mission to patronize every yarn store in the city of Toronto and Ottawa. And I love a silk linen blend, and this was on sale, and I know I can get some type of modified Jessie May My Summer Secret crop top out of this, which is one of my go-to favorite summer garment patterns as a base piece for layering in winter or just wearing as a top in summer. I wear them a lot as like a bralette slash undershirt slash like wear in winter thing as well. And yeah, so this is 65/35 silk linen. It's 155 grams and it's in the color Copper. And silk linen is a very expensive base, so getting some on sale in like one single skein garment quantity, perfect. And I got to try out a new store. So yeah, I also got from Good Grief Yarn and Provisions, I looked at their buttons, and I got these fake pearl buttons. Each one was like, I think something like 90 cents. They were really not expensive. And these are, oh gosh, I'm blanking on the name of this type of button. But you know what it looks like, what are these called? It starts with an S or something. That's gonna bug me. Yeah, they look like this. Yeah, I think they're pretty. And I got a few of those as well for a future project. So yeah, these are my acquisitions in terms of like yarny things. I have one or two more acquisitions, kind of random, but I bought my first, that's not true. You guys are sitting on my first ever knitting magazine, which is an old issue of Pom Pom. I was at Shoppers Drug Mart recently. I stopped in for some milk on my way home and for some milk duds, because I am back in a milk dud phase. And this particular Shoppers Drug Mart, which is the one on Bank and Laurier in Centertown, if anybody's in Ottawa, sells a bunch of knitting magazines and crochet magazines and sewing magazines. And I've never really seen those out in the wild before, beyond at a yarn store. And it was two magazines together with something, what is this? With like 51 patterns between the two of them for like $18. And it also came with a bunch of faux leather made with love or like handmade by tags. And I was a little blue that day, and so I bought the knitting magazines. I just wanted to, like support buying knitting magazines so that they continue being stocked at like random Shoppers Drug Marts across the country. And also because I'd heard of Berta magazine before, but never used it. And I don't know, it was a spontaneous purchase. And because I went in with, quite frankly, very low expectations, I was thinking like, okay, $18 for 51 patterns. If I find two things in this, that is already, that I want to knit, that is already a good value for pattern, because very often knitting patterns are like $10, $11, $12 Canadian. Because our currency is very weak compared to euros or kroner or pounds or American dollars. And I've been quite pleasantly surprised. First of all, this is Simply Knitting, and this is the issue 223. It's British. First thing I absolutely want to make is this weird pillow. Look at it. It is a fairy house, like a toadstool fairy house pillow. It looks like so much fun to make. And I looked at the instructions and I think it will. And I can use like scrap for this, and maybe even scrap for the mushroom cap. I want this. My roommate's on board. And this will either be a pillow I have in my room or a pillow we have on the couch. but I like it and I want to make it. Next pattern that immediately I was like, oh, heck yes. Oh, and sorry, this toadstool house is by Amanda Berry. And it is on Ravelry. There are no project pages, but I will. Okay, it's called Toadstool Cushion by Amanda Berry, and I will link it down below. The other one, like, this sweater is cute. I don't know if I would wear it, but I have the option now. I have the pattern. This little stuffed dinosaur. I have two separate friends who really, really love dinosaurs, and two separate gift-giving occasions for them sort of coming up. One of my friends is writing the bar, actually just finished writing the bar, I think literally yesterday, and so this is I've never made her anything either, so except for a crochet AirPods case. So congrats on passing the bar, celebratory dinosaur mayhaps, and also one of my roommates loves dinosaurs, and her birthday is in October. So I like that. There's also a baby sweater that I would be very happy to make that's in this. Oh, also this Alice in Wonderland inspired tea cozy. It's so kitsch and I love it. And I've been looking for a good tea cozy for my teapot because I have a really lovely teapot, but then it gets cold because I drink tea really slowly. I also just think that would be a lot of fun to make. Also, there's a crossword that's knitting themed. I like crosswords. There's just like a full-on knitting magazine. Like there's troubleshooting, there's techniques, is it a moss stitch or a seed stitch little section? This adorable baby cardigan. I would love to make this. I'm waiting for there to be more babies born in my life so I can make more baby clothes. Also, I made a friend's baby, 2 items of clothing before he was born. One was like a 3 to 6 month sweater, and then one was a 1.5-year-old sweater for his first and his second winter. And I was not sure if the first sweater, like the newborn one, would really fit or get a lot of use because I made it, and then my mom said very kindly and very lovingly, you don't put a baby in a sweater very much if you can avoid it. So, but the mother of the baby, my friend, sent me a bunch of photos of him wearing it at different occasions and says it's his favorite sweater, which I don't know if that's true, but I was quite touched. And another friend has seen the baby and the friend, like I think out for brunch, and the baby was wearing a sweater and he seemed happy and they're genuinely putting him in it, and that makes me happy. So if they're open to it, maybe I make him a cardigan for his second spring as well. And if not, maybe another coworker will have a baby, or I don't know. I'm just hoping, I just like baby knits. I think they're fun. And I think this is cute. I like the seed stitch. I like the cables. I like the little collar. I think this would be really, really fun. Yeah, there's also a men's sweater in here that I like the look of. I'd have to double check with Nathan if he would actually wear it. I don't think it's my brother or my father's style. Yeah, I don't love the yarn choice, but I think this would be fun to make and is actually like a pretty cute style. Yeah, pretty neato. And then there's just a bunch of articles and stuff like that. Like it's a proper, like magazine stand magazine. And I think that's kind of fun. I always really liked magazines. I was a subscriber to 17 magazine for a while as a young teen. Yeah, and I guess I kind of missed that. The other one was Berta Knitting, which is a European magazine, I understand. And I was really, really excited about this because a lot of these were like very modern, not super interesting, but like fun, fluffy, very much in that loose, oversized Scandinavian style. Those are cute clogs, but the point of this is not the clogs. Like, for example, this is a cute quarter zip sweater that there are a lot of cute quarter zips out. For example, Petite Knit Zipper Sweater, famous, and then also Rebecca has the Lanark sweater, I think coming out very soon, or just came out. But now I have this one. And I could make it for myself or a loved one, and that's really cool. I think that's the one that appeals to me the most in this. There are a couple vests that if I was a taller woman, I would absolutely make in a heartbeat, but I look funky in a vest, and not good funky. The only thing is, I got really excited about all these patterns, and only one of them is size inclusive. I also don't understand why. Like, why only one? at least it's one I like. A couple scarves in here I do like. Yeah, this is one of the more size inclusive ones. It's only in centimeters, and I am not great at all centimeter conversion, so 124 centimeter bust is the highest at the range, and an 84 is the smallest, and I'm an 86 bust, so that's not really a good size range on either end. However, it looks like this, and I like it. Look at that pretty cable going down the front, and we all know how I feel about moss stitch. I think it's neat. So, yeah, all in all, between these two, I think very good value for money, because there's more than 2 things I would want to knit in these. And I also got those tags. And all in all, this was just like really brightened my day when I found them, and I'm really happy I have them. So those are my acquisitions. That is, I think, all that I have to share with you this episode. I think my upcoming knitting plans, despite the snow and me being all emo about it being winter here still. Oh, and this Broda magazine issue is winter 2022, I think, I assume. Yes, number 10, 2022. I am starting to get antsy about starting my warmer weather projects because everything I have set to make for a warm weather garment is a sport weight or lower, with the exception of like an easy crop with this. And those are going to take me a long time, and I would like to be able to wear them while it's still hot. I also am getting antsy about redoing my mom's camisole number 7, 8. This one. I need to frog it back to where the body starts and make it significantly smaller. Like, I need to remove all of this fabric, you see, right here, like this much, and also this much, because I'd like to give this to her for her birthday in May, and it's going to take me a little while because this is on 3mm needles, and I need to redo it. So the first week of April, I'm going to definitely do this, and cast on maybe for myself one of my summer garments, like probably the twist loop top by Other Loops, and we'll see how it goes. So thank you for catching up with me. It's been great chatting. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you're doing well. I hope you and your loved ones are happy and healthy, and I'll see you guys again soon. Okay.